We're going to move into For the Culture, and we're going to start with She Did That, our new segment in celebration of Women's History Month. And I'm going to let Nica take over and kind of give us a highlight of somebody, again, that's in these streets as we speak. And I think I may have met her at South by Southwest one year, but I'll let you go ahead and give us the spotlight on She Did That for this week.
This week, it is on Kathryn Finney, the founder and former, as of 2020, CEO of Digital Undivided. And if you aren't aware, Digital Undivided is a nonprofit organization that merges data and heart to develop innovative programs and initiatives that catalyze economic growth in Black and Latinx communities. Basically, it's using data to make it a lot easier for Black and brown folks to grow economically. As I mentioned, she's a founder and former CEO. So when she stepped down as the CEO of the org, she picked up some other things. She is the founder of the Dooney Fund, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is kind of in the same vein, but just takes a different spin on it, which is a micro investment type of company that funds Black women entrepreneurs. This is in conjunction with her new, I don't want to say startup, but her new venture, where she is a CEO and managing partner of the organization Genius Guild, which is a $20 million venture fund and studio that invests in Black founders. So she kind of she stepped aside from Digital Divide and went into a similar vein, but taking, it seems like, a different approach. In addition to those two things, she is also the first Black business author at Portfolio Penguin Books. She is, we talk a lot about technologies, we talk a lot about STEM. On our show, it's mostly the T in STEM, but she is more on the science side of STEM. She is a Yale-trained epidemiologist. So in addition to her background in the medical type of science, she is also, as we mentioned before, on the technology end by being named Inc. Magazine's influential woman in tech. Some other honors and accolades that she has amassed include the Echoing Green Fellowship, Eisenhower Fellowship, Entrepreneurs Magazine's Woman to Watch, Grace Hopper ABIE Award, Marie Claire's 10 Women to Watch, Ebony Power 100, Black Enterprises 40 Under 40 list, and she also served on the National Advisory Council of Innovation Entrepreneurship under the Obama administration. So she is definitely out in these entrepreneur streets, trying to make it easier for Black women and Black folks to succeed in the business world.
Yeah, and it looks
like She Did That.
Yeah, so it looks like, her going from Digital Undivided to the Dooney Fund and the Genius Guild. I think to me, it looks like she started as, you know what? We want to give Black entrepreneurs love. We want to give them support. We want to make connections. We want to build networks so Black and Latinx founders can do good. It looks like she realized and was like, look, they need money. So
we got enough mentorships. We got enough partnerships. Let's get to the dollar bills.
The love and the networking and the support is good. They need money. So it looks like these other two things where it's like, look, we are investing directly into Black founders because that's what we are missing, which is, couldn't be more true. You sure, put me in your network, but I need money. So shout out for her for actually, making that switch. Because again, like I said, a lot of Black founders, a lot of startups, they're tired of the runaround when it comes to trying to get funding, so shout out for that. All right. So the next story we had up, you put in, I guess it's kind of mixed as to how people feel about this, but Ralph Lauren has partnered. It seems like it's partnered, not just they released a fashion line. They actually partnered with HBCUs to release a fashion line. So I'll let you kind of break it down, and we can kind of talk about how people feel about this.
Right. So it was released, well, it had to be yesterday, which was Tuesday, because of course the internet went abuzz. Not necessarily because of the partnership, but the content from that partnership. So Ralph Lauren, which is a quintessential American brand, very preppy, aesthetic. Um, Black folks rock hard with the polo for certain. And so they created this new collection that celebrates the history of two of the most known HBCUs, historically Black college and universities in America, right here, based right here in Atlanta, which is Morehouse College and Spelman College. And when I first saw the pictures, I was like, is this 1950? Because the aesthetic of the clothing and the way that it was shot, it was very reminiscent of the 1950s. I was pretty shell shocked when I first saw the clothes. Then after I kind of took a beat and went back, I looked at things in pieces and not as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the clothing in pieces made more sense. The way they had them styled was kind of off to me. And what they initially released, I was like, yikes. But seeing some of the sweaters, that the guys are that they wore, I was like, okay, this is kind of dope. I could see how they could make how this could be a thing. But of course, Twitter got a hold of it, and they saw the Instagram got a hold of it. They saw the images where it really did look like
Out
a
of
throwback to
context.
the 50s. Right. And people were like, oh, it's based in classism, because they were saying it looks very, highbrow and everyone can't participate. Then they went with the whole, why does it always have to be if it's Black stuff? It's like old from the 1950s and 1960s. Why can't it be now? Then it went into the diatribe of, why is it always Morehouse? Why isn't it always Spelman? It's more HBCUs in this country than just these two. Then more than just them and Howard and FAM. There are other HBCUs. When I took a beat and kind of stepped back from all of the noise, what people I think are missing is that this collection was designed by a Morehouse alum who started working at Ralph Lauren when he was 16. And apparently, reading up on him and some of the background, he was known as Mr. Polo, for lack of a better term. When he was
Mm-hmm.
on campus and he was in the yard at Morehouse, he was poloed down before that was kind of his thing. And they were like, if you know him, this is completely his aesthetic. This is
Mm-hmm.
completely what he is all about. So the aesthetic is more of the gentleman who basically brought this collection forward. And again, with the folks talking about why is it always Morehouse, why is it always Spelman, because in this particular case, the person went to Morehouse. So of course
Mm-hmm.
they are going to advocate for
Mm-hmm.
their alma mater to be, in the representation. So you're starting to see some of the discourse kind of shift, but it's still pretty split where, of course, people who went to Morehouse and Spelman, oh my gosh, this is amazing, this is great. People who didn't go to these HBCUs, who went to other HBCUs, oh my God, always these two, always these two. And then people in general is, we have moved beyond, the struggle of the Jim Crow era. So again,
Right.
it's a lot of discourse, a lot of conversation around it. When you look at it more in context and at what's the word I'm looking for? At the more nuanced view,
Mm-hmm.
it starts to make sense. But of course, people are going to get these hot takes off. They're going to see something and they are going to run straight to social media and give their opinion. So, as a person who went to an HBCU, thoughts?
Um, so at first, I didn't look that deep into it. Number one, I don't wear Ralph Lauren like that, so I didn't have a dog in the fight directly. I did go to an HBCU. I did not go to HBCU in the 50s. So, but at the same time, this seems Ralph Lauren esque. This is not
Yes.
something that out of the blue, all of a sudden Ralph Lauren decide this is what we're gonna do, right? This is not a
This is their
aesthetic.
aesthetic.
Right. This is not an aesthetic that is unlike Ralph Lauren. It looks very Ralph Lauren-ish. It's just for this collection. Again, I don't know. I'm not a stylista, fashionista, whatever like that. But a collection to me is almost like runway, to where even though some of this stuff will be on sale, it's not meant to be for overall, this is how Ralph Lauren is going to look for the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. This is almost like an art project. That's what I think of a collection.
And it's a collection.
Right.
Yeah,
I think of
agree.
a fashion line putting out a collection. It's almost like an art project.
Mhm.
It's something that they want to display, a theme, a movement, a season, whatever you want to call it. But it's not meant to be, this is our stance on how fashion is going to look going forward. This is kind of like a thing we did. We want you to look at it, maybe buy some pieces, but this is like, look at this. This is a museum art project, right? So I looked at it from that viewpoint, to where this is in line with Ralph Lauren. For this collection, they decided to focus on HBCUs, which the popular thing to do now is focus on Black folks, and pick a era, the 1940s and 1950s. So looking at that, that's how I kind of looked at it. Again, I'm not a fashionista, so tell me if I'm wrong with
You
how
are you are fully correct. We'll post the link in the show notes, but it's an article from Vogue, and this really kind of gave me a more informed view. So it says in the article, quote, imagery from the 1920s to 1950s informed the silhouette. Silhouette means the cut, the style, and the shape of the clothing, all rooted in Ralph Lauren's classic tailoring, as did certain key pieces from both Atlanta schools. So you are completely correct. And that's what this is. They took, and if you look at the article, they have some images from the universities during that time frame. One of the images is it's some young ladies sitting on the
sitting
grassy
in the yard
knoll
somewhere.
and
Right.
sitting on the yard. And one of the shots from the collection
Mm-hmm.
mirrors this. Some
Right.
of
Right.
the I guess the athletic, attire looks like it's a basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
When you go back and look at the collection, it's like, oh, I see it. It's a modernized version, which it says in the article, from the inspiration and the silhouette from the 1920s and 1950s. That's exactly where they took it from. And this is exactly what it looks like, just
And in,
modernized.
in in my opinion, it ain't even modernized, because I don't see a lot of people rocking this right now, unless you are, for your outfit, you're going for a specific look. I think a lot of people, um, the people who had arguments against this, kind of took it as, this is what Ralph Lauren thinks the trend for Black people is going to be henceforth and now on, right? Ralph Lauren is trying to push this 30s and 40s civil rights movement look on Black folks,
Right.
you
And that's
know,
not what it is.
and that's not what they're trying to do. But they kind of took it as, okay, well, the one time y'all want to focus on Black people is y'all want to focus on us, when Black folks in America really wasn't on good terms, which is why HBCUs came about.
Right.
We couldn't get into regular colleges and universities, so instead of y'all focusing on us back then, y'all stayed quiet. And then now, when it's cool to focus on us back then, now you want to pull out this fashion line and make this the new trendy thing to be 1950s HBCU chic, right? Which I can see people getting upset about that, but I don't think, my impression is, I don't think that's what they're trying to do. It's just, like I said, it's like an art project, and this is like, for the art project, they focused on 1940s, 50s HBCU inspired, a collection, right?
Right. And the person who was responsible for this, James Jeter, his title is Director of Concept Design and Special Projects at Ralph Lauren. He graduated
Right.
in 2013. So this is his This is his area. This is his concept. This is his special project. And again, if you're going to do something like this and you are an alumni of a school
You're
that
gonna
fits
plug your
this,
people. Mhm.
you're going to put yourself on. You're going to put your school on because it's getting a lot of eyes onto the universities. Not that they really need it because they're quite popular. But at the same time, this kind of leans in. I hate lean in, but that's what I used. To, it looks like Ralph Lauren, the company, pledged scholarships to the tune of $2 million to
Right.
12 HBCUs. So it wasn't just these two universities, getting something from this. They already had a partnership in place that
But, yeah,
provided
everybody.
scholarships to HBCUs,
Nobody
to
likes
12 of them.
nepotism, and I use nepotism loosely for the fact that this guy went to Morehouse, so he put his college on. Nobody likes nepotism until they're in a position to actually do it. Everybody talks about, oh, the only reason why that kid got a job at this company or is working on this corporation or got this job or got that position is because they mama or because they daddy. But let them be in a position where they can put their kids on or put
Until they
their
can
friends
benefit from
on.
it, then the nepotism thing kind of
Right.
goes out the window.
And I know nepotism is not the right word for what this guy is doing as it relates.
Nepotism-esque.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But come on, if I went to an HBCU, and if I was the fashion designer for a major fashion house, and they said, "Oh, we're going to, come up with a collection or some sort of, inspiration," and they came to me and said, "Hey,
You got to do it.
um,
You lead it.
you run it. Who should we use to go on here? I'm gonna pick my HBCU as the
Right.
lead. So it's like can't knock the player, right?
Right.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Right.
But again, we're not a monolith,
At all.
so
This isn't
I
for
can see
everybody. This
how.
isn't even for everybody who attended Morehouse and Spelman.
Right.
So
Right. So I can at the very least, empathize with people who feel like in the wake of George Floyd, in all this, brands and companies, catering or not catering, pandering to black demographics. I can see how they can see this as Ralph Lauren saying, what black people, what do we do? HBCUs, go, and then they put this thing together, not really, exploring the entire era and what effect did that have on African Americans and HBCUs and civil rights and all these things. I could see how they could get that, but at the same time, I don't think Ralph Lauren, that's not necessarily their job, but at the same time, this seems on par or on what's called on not on par, I guess on par with what Ralph Lauren would do as it relates to eras and
right.
designs of a particular era.
And also you have to, I think people in their quote unquote outrage, they lose, I guess, a little bit of focus because during the summer of George Floyd's murder, and everybody was saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. This is what that looks like. It may
Right.
not look the way you wanted it to look, but
Right.
this in the fashion lane, this is their contribution in addition to, the scholarships to the 12 HBCUs. This is the result. This is the fruit of those conversations. What can we do to help? And again, yes, George Floyd's murder is quote unquote not hot news or not the big thing that everyone's talking about. It takes time for these things to happen. You
Right.
aren't just going to get, no company is just going to walk up to every black person and say, here's $100,000. That's it. It's not feasible. And
Right.
it doesn't make sense. So in whatever lane that these companies are in, this is the fruit of their labor. This is the product of their commitment to outreach or to do something positive. Again, it's a couple years down the road, which makes sense because this isn't something that happens immediately. And I think people in their faux outrage forget that this is a process and this is how this is how it works.
Right, right. And, we always have the argument to where, companies will do something and we'd be like, what black person in the room approved this? Right.
Right.
That's our, when they do something or say something or release
Why
something,
wasn't a
like,
black person involved?
right.
We
This
need
is
more
why we
black
need
people in the
diversity
room.
and this is why we
Yeah.
need people in the room. Right. So when, clearly from the looks of this, that we were in the room and we were included and we were
Leading
actually,
it.
right, we were actually able to put our spin on it. You gotta give them a hat tip. Again, I don't rock Ralph Lauren like that. I ain't gonna they ain't gonna get 100% pass, but at the same time, I see where they were trying to go with this. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, maybe they'll see the outcome of this. Maybe they'll tweak some things going forward in the future, or maybe this will be their last of the activation. But I doubt it, because the person who basically is the director of all of this, kind of spearheaded it. Maybe the next iteration, they'll take some feedback and do something a little bit different. Who knows? Maybe
Right.
it'll be another HBCU next. Maybe this was just the first in the line of things because he is director of special projects or something, it said. So, I mean, sometimes you got to give things time to kind of flesh out a little bit before,
Or you can
you
just
go
not
full
like it,
rogue.
and that's okay too.
That is okay too. And I think a lot of it goes with the HBCU, some of the hate of why is it always the same people?
Right.
That's, I think, factored into some of that as well. And I'm sure, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure there are some people on the other side. Why does it always have to be black people? What about this group? What about that group? Where are we going to get our? It's always something. I
Right.
say, this is getting publicity for the university. Hopefully, some additional maybe donor dollars. It's some spotlight. So, we'll take that for what it is. Happy for the people who want to buy some of these things and want to wear them. Good for you. This is going to be
And then
great
even in
for
that,
you.
which is again all the more reason to kind of look at this as an art project. Some of this stuff, it's not now. I mean, you could probably take a shirt and make it, current. You could probably take, a skirt or take, a jacket or a cardigan or whatever and kind of make it current or add
Style
your
it
own
where it's more,
flavor
yeah,
to it, you
yeah,
know. But I don't think this was, again, like I said, I don't think this is Ralph Lauren trying to push this aesthetic on black people, saying, look, this is what black people gonna rock for the next, a year or two, because this is the trend we see, HB 1950s HBCU chic. I don't think that's what they're trying to say.
right.
I think it was an art project,
Yeah,
and it was just meant to be, take it how you want to take it. If you take it as, wherever you want to go, I don't think this is meant to be something that they're trying to make black people wear, right?
right. And before we move on, looking into it, there are specific things in this collection that are nods to the to the colleges. White patchwork eyelets and silk wrap dresses are nod to Spelman's annual white dress ceremony. With the flannel blazers, it's a tradition that Morehouse men get as freshmen. So it's some history steeped in, I guess, the
Yeah.
discourse of these colleges, as well as, the fashion component. And again, like I said, looking at the pieces, not styled the way that the shoots are, but taking the pieces individually, I can definitely see how you can make these very modern and fashion forward. The only thing is, this time of year, sweaters and
Right.
cardigans,
It's
they
getting
may
a little
should have
warm.
maybe switched it up a
Yeah.
little bit and maybe did this, going the end of summer going into fall, where you can kind of wear both of these things during that time.
Right.
So,
And, like you said, some of this stuff is very Morehouse specific, with the years that
hmm
the colleges was founded, the logos and the
hmm
emblems. I didn't go to
the
Morehouse.
colors,
Right. The colors. I didn't go to Morehouse. So, the very specific stuff to Morehouse, I wouldn't wear it. Same way, I'm not a Greek. You're not going to catch me with no alpha,
Greek paraphernalia. Yeah,
right, right. It's just like something you don't do. So it's almost like I can respect this, uh, having went to or have an affinity for an HBCU, even if I didn't go to the specific one. Right.
right, right.